We are the tribe from the north, we're brave and we're bold. Defeating our rivals never gets old. Making our way to the Big Sky Conference. Watch out, 'cause here comes the silver and gold. Whoa, whoa. This is Tubbs at the Club for the Vandals of Idaho.
Welcome back, Tribe from North, Brave and Bold, to the official, unofficial podcast of your Idaho Vandals and the Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined today by Dream Team producer, just two of us today, Dallas Hammer, and his, throwing it out to Blink 182. He is definitely making sure everyone knows he is an aging millennial. Welcome to the club, man. Dallas, how's it going? I can't believe you didn't tell everyone last time we recorded that you're not a Gonzaga fan.
I thought it was kind of just implied. I don't know a lot of people that root for Idaho that root for Gonzaga, so I just kind of assumed people knew that about me. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably have figured that out over the years. But yeah, just not a big fan. I have a background in media, interviewed a lot of coaches throughout my times. There's a reason that I really like the Eastern program and root for them outside of the Vandals, and why I don't root for Gonzaga. So I'll leave that as it stands.
Which means, good Lord, Dallas, if people are here to get your devastating sports news, it just keeps rolling for you. Gonzaga with a big win last night. Idaho with a devastating loss we're about to talk about. Which really, that's what we're here for, guys. It's our kind of instant reaction to the King Spud game. Idaho goes down 22-24 to Idaho State in Pocatello. But before we relive, good Lord, that was a devastating game. Before we relive that, guys, ain't nothing like cracking a Montucky cold snack, an ultra refreshing light beer born in majestic Big Sky country. The best part is, when you crack a snack, you're giving back. Montucky Cold Snacks donates 8% of all profits back to local causes, even right here in Idaho, supporting organizations like CW Hogs and Idaho Food Bank. Yeehaw! That's freaking awesome. Montucky Cold Snacks, light American lager for pow rippers, gator wranglers, pony riders, and badass do-gooders. Visit MontuckyColdSnacks.com today to find out how to get your ass some snacks. Around the bar time, brought to you by Hughes River Expedition. We've only got one thing we're talking about, guys. Yesterday in Pocatello, King Spud Trophy game, unofficially. ICCU Battle of the Domes officially, but again, none of our listeners care about that part. Idaho goes down to the mighty Bengals, 22-24. Idaho starts the game out slow, as we've seen in multiple games, down 14-0 at the end of the first. We score 15 consecutive points. We pull ahead in the fourth quarter, but Idaho State closes out with a long touchdown, which is essentially nail in the coffin. They win 24-22. Basic stat line for us that we would care about: Nikhil Nayar, 130 yards, going 11 of around 34. Tyler Vanderwall for Idaho State, 398 yards passing, did throw 2 interceptions. And like I said, Idaho State pulls out the game late. It's another close game for our Vandals. This time we end up on the wrong side. But Dallas, what's the story of this game?
Inconsistency, I think, is my story of this game. This is something we talked about a little bit in our failed attempt to do this yesterday, and something we talked about just messaging back and forth between the two of us. This felt a lot like the SUU game, where just there were a lot of things that just were sloppy and didn't execute super well. There were times where the defense looked all world. They kept ISU off the board for the most part. They didn't score in the second or third quarters, and their offense honestly didn't really move the ball. Looked very good, and then allowed huge plays in the first and the fourth quarter. And then our quarterback situation, 16 of 43 for 180 yards, touchdown, interception, is the numbers there for the quarterbacks. Not great. A couple drives where Nair looked really good. Maybe not really good, but looked like, okay, the offense is moving up and down the field. And then the other 50 minutes of the game were three and out passes over heads, passes bouncing off the turf, just a sloppy game all around.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we projected heading into this game is that it would be high scoring because Idaho and Idaho State were two of the worst. No, they weren't two of the worst. They were the two worst defenses still active. And yeah, 22-24 was not what we expected. But maybe we should have expected another sub-30 scoring outing from Idaho because we just have not put the ball in the end zone. Really, we've broken 30 once this season. We didn't do it very many times last season. I don't think we did against a D1 team in all of 2018. That's just kind of par for the course, I guess, when we're understanding between those teams. They just don't score that well. Not like they're terrible, but they're certainly not great. I do want to highlight a couple of the let's pretend we're Weber State Weekly. This is turnovers and takeaways. I want to highlight a couple of the things that I think Vandals will look at this game and say, hey, but this was growth, or this is why the game was within reach. Once again, our front seven looked great for a ton of this game. Idaho State rushed 38 times for 115 total yards. They had a net of 85. That also subtracts 16 yards from sacks against Tyler Vanderwall. But Malachi Rango, their best running back, 18 rushes for 65 yards. That is, you have to understand, he did nothing outside of his 119-yard run. Other than that, Rango had no room to run whatsoever. Raiden Hunter, 11 rushes, 42 yards for Idaho State. Again, he had one long of 17 yards. Outside of that 17-yard rush, he had 10 rushes for around 27 yards. That's absolutely nothing. Our front seven was giving up no space on the ground. And our front seven, look, our secondary again looked abominable in the first quarter. And I know, Dallas, I bet you're like me. You thought we were going to lose by about 600. But we started getting to Vanderwall. Our linemen started getting through. I know that Jonah Kim picked up 2 sacks on his own. And that's where we started to see some difficulty from Idaho State passing, not because our secondary was locking down completely. It's because we weren't giving him time. And maybe that's the formula defensively for us to look stronger. Do you have any other takeaways in Dallas that you saw and thought, okay, well, this is the Vandal team we thought we were going to see? We wouldn't be disappointed if we thought the team sucked. And if we feel disappointed, it's because we're not landing where we thought we would, which means there is something promising about this roster.
I mean, it's so tough to try to come at this diplomatically, because I think you and I both know where this conversation is ultimately going to lead up with our frustrations with this team and this program as a whole. But Hayden Hatton continues to look fantastic. That's at least something that we can look at as a positive. That guy, it doesn't matter who's out there. He's good for 10 catches and 100 yards. 9 for 95 on a touchdown. Was certainly the best player for Idaho offensively. That's been really nice to see. The running game was better. Now, Idaho State was one of the worst run defenses in the Big Sky coming into this game. So Roshan and Nick both having 3.8, 4.1 yards per carry, a little bit better than what they'd seen so far this season. That was nice, but man, at the end of the day, that's about the only other positive I've got outside of the front seven continuing to be ultimately very good. I think that the defense spends a little bit too much time on the field, and that's why we see some of the large plays that we do, and then the secondary can't stop a nosebleed. But those are my positive takeaways before we get real negative.
Yeah, we'll get to secondary in a second, but also Trey Walker was back, and yeah, Trey Walker again was all over the place. 17 total tackles, 7 solo, 6 assisted, 2 tackles for loss, including 1 sack. Christian Ellis was a bit more of it's not to say he hasn't had an impact in other games, but he hasn't had some of the stat lines we thought he might have. And Christian Ellis, 9 solo tackles, guys, 11 total. He was making plays the way, honestly, a lot of us had expected we'd see him starting against Eastern, which again isn't to say that Christian Ellis has had a rough season or anything. It's that he's an elite linebacker talent in the Big Sky. And he certainly played like that, him along with Trey Walker. But yeah, that's to me really where Idaho fans have to focus on, or that's what Idaho fans should be looking at and saying, our front seven is elite. Our linebackers are elite relative to the Big Sky. We held the team to 24 points. You got to win games if the other team's only scoring 24 points. Idaho State is a relatively good scoring team, and we held them to 24. One of those touchdowns came real late in the game, too. So, I mean, realistically, they were around 17 till late in the fourth quarter. But there's a two-pronged thing that I don't know how to unravel, Dallas. So I'm just going to talk about one part. Our secondary dug us a huge hole immediately, where Tyler Vanderwall was finding Tanner Connor. Look, Tanner Connor for Idaho State had 208 receiving yards on 9 receptions. There was a point almost halfway through the first half where Idaho State was averaging 19.8 yards per attempt. It's astounding that Idaho State only put up 24 on us.
I mean, Tanner Connor was the Big Sky Podcast Network's midseason non-quarterback MVP, and then he goes out and has his best game of the season against Idaho. So it was expected that he was going to play well, but putting up 200 yards, it was mind-blowing, especially doing that realistically in 2 quarters, because for 2 quarters of the game, there wasn't a whole lot going on for ISU. It's mind-numbing to watch the defense continue to commit to the exact same thing over and over and over. It seems like the best receiver on every single team has a huge day against us, because we have one corner go up against him in man coverage. He gets behind the guy and it's wide open 50-yard passes. I don't understand why there has not been some sort of change to give a little bit more help on the major receivers. For the most part, you could say that the rest of the team didn't do a lot. Connor had 9 of their 20 catches. The other guys were fairly quiet, but it's mind-numbing to watch anytime. And this was tough for those of us that watched on Pluto. The camera work was so shoddy that sometimes you couldn't see what actually happened until you saw a replay. But it seemed like Connor wouldn't even get to the first down marker, and he's already 5 yards behind the corner. I don't understand how this continues to happen. This is probably me leading into a bigger point, but I also don't understand how we have an offensive guru at head coach, and yet we can't score more than 30 points a game. It's rare when it happens. I don't understand anything about this program. You would think that there would be adjustments made to some of this. Maybe the talent just isn't there, but it is maddening to watch time and time again the secondary get shredded. And I don't know what the safeties are doing, because there's never a safety over the top on the guy running the post route.
Dallas, you're not wrong about being confused, because we pitched a shutout through the second and third quarter against Idaho State. And in spite of that, at the start of the fourth quarter, we were up by 1 point, 15-14, after shutting out Idaho State, a higher scoring team for half the game. And look, offensively, Idaho is just not doing close to enough. We've seen this through, in my mind, every single game we've played. I mean, Southern Utah, we offensively, I mean, look, we actually did look all right with CJ to open up against Southern Utah. We had a little bit of difficulty midway through the game, but we got really good quarterback play against Southern Utah. If we compare that to Idaho State, I mean, if we had anywhere near the quarterback play in Idaho State that we'd had against Southern Utah, we should have easily won this game. I know people on this show, including me, were pretty excited to see Nikhil out there after what we saw against Idaho State, where it looked like we had a gem on the bench. Boy, were we wrong about that. Or maybe there's some minor injury that would help explain some of the struggles. I don't know. In the same way that Paul tries to be tight-lipped sometimes, that doesn't help us understand further context. It actually lets you be more charitable towards him. I know in the postgame he told Colton Clark that Nikhil was just missing reads, but I know we felt like, oh man, our third string quarterback is looking great. It would be tough for Nikhil to look worse than he did. 11-34. He did get a touchdown on the ground. He did throw for a touchdown. Somehow only threw 1 pick, but I mean, anyway, 11-34, it doesn't matter if you're throwing picks. A 3 and out is a turnover anyway.
So something Chris Hammond mentioned in one of his first quarterback previews, not even for this season, but in the previous Big Sky seasons, he called Nair I don't remember the exact phrase, but essentially he was the underdog, but the dark horse as well. And something that Chris had alluded to, and something that we've heard from other folks, is that Nair really struggles with consistency, which ties back into my overall theme of inconsistency. And last week, the 12 for 20, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He looked very good. I was saying, why the hell didn't this kid play for the last couple of years? Now we might have understood that. Anytime you put up the stat line that he did yesterday, 11 for 34, that's really awful. I'm sure anybody listening to this knows that, but I cannot overstate how absolutely terrible that is. Unfortunately, that doesn't get it done. That's never going to get it done. Those are laughably bad numbers, and it's part of why you score 22 points in a game when your quarterback completes less than a third of his passes.
Yeah, and even when he was accurate, he was still missing guys over the wrong shoulder. Like it's, I mean, again, the stream made it hard to see a little bit of this, but, and also, by the way, the announcing crew for Idaho State, good Lord, I thought Southern Utah was my least favorite announcing crew. At least they know what's going on the field. The Idaho State announcing crew mislabeled when Nikhil even came in, but yeah, Nikhil, we talked about against Southern Utah, we were seeing accuracy at intermediate passing that we just hadn't had prior, and that seemed to be a difference in us getting to move the ball at times. And even when Nikhil was accurate for him today or yesterday, he was still, the timing was off. It was off the wrong shoulder. We only had 3 active receivers, so maybe that was a problem. But also, like, Petrino went on record in the press conference saying that Nikhil was just missing reads. He was missing open people. Never mind not getting the ball to him, just not seeing them when they were open. That helps explain the 22 points. But look at Dallas, if this were just one game where we score low, we'd be fine saying, okay, well, look, third string guy had magic one week, but we found out why he's third string. There's some thematic issues that don't have anything to do with Nikhil Nair having a real rough outing. Idaho is now 1-8 on the road since joining the Big Sky. And maybe this is a Tubbs Club problem. We should have brought that up in our preview. I think we all thought this team had turned the corner, where if we're playing teams that are all right, maybe the road thing doesn't matter for some reason. We just have to write off that NAU win at the end of last year. That wasn't a monkey coming off our back. That was just a meaningless game that when it ended, someone had to have more points than the other team. The same Idaho, Lord knows what we're seeing on the road, came right back, Dallas, and I don't think we've moved an inch in terms of progressing as a road team.
No, not at all. And I would honestly argue, and this is where I'm going to take this off the rails, so I apologize, Brian, and I apologize to anybody that thinks Paul Petrino is a good coach. Idaho has scored more than 30 points against an FCS school 4 times in the last 3 seasons. That shit is unacceptable. Paul Petrino was an SEC offensive coordinator. We all know that he got his job because of his brother, but you're an SEC offensive coordinator. At this level, you should be scoring 30 points a game. People look at Eastern, and we were talking about Aaron Best potentially being on the hot seat because they've had 2 seasons of his 3 where they only won 7 games. First off, I might kill someone for 7 games. I would be blown away if Paul Petrino wins 7 games again. But it is maddening to watch. There is a ton of talent out here. Now, Cottrell Haywood, for some reason, has just had the worst butterfingers of ever. Last year, I thought he was just as good as Cotton, and then this year he's struggled. But Hatton has played great. The running backs we know are good. The offensive line is obviously struggling with the young guys. But at the end of the day, it's bullshit is what it is. I don't have another word for it. I don't understand how Idaho can't win on the road. They can't score points. What are we doing here? We're just a team that's going to win 4 to 6 games a season and just go through the motions every single year. There's no sort of improvement here. We've all talked for way too many hours about Mason and the whole weird dynamic of a coach playing his kid who was obviously not the greatest quarterback. But here we are thinking, okay, Mason's gone. Things are going to get better. They haven't gotten better. Sure, the quarterbacks can throw the ball farther now. They don't make some of the reads Mason did. I will give him that. He was a smart kid. He made the right decision. He just didn't scare anybody. But here we are now. We have this guy that's transferred from the FBS. We have CJ Jordan, one of the highest rated recruits we've ever had. Yes, the third string quarterback didn't look very good yesterday. It's a third string quarterback. I'm not going to be too upset about it. But overall, where the hell is the progression for this team? I'm not seeing it. And it's maddening to me that we were sold on Idaho's going to move down to the FCS and be a bully again. And here we are, we're the doormat.
Yeah, 2018 Idaho, and we're just sticking with the offensive thread for a second. And the only reason I'm bracketing this, Dallas, is because this is the same dynamic as last year. Defensively, we were not bad in 2019. And we've talked about this defensive squad a ton. Front seven's fantastic. Secondary is real weak. We have to hope that, honestly, that Daryn Nash not playing is a pretty big deal. We have to hope that maybe someone else is coming too. Or maybe the big thing we have to hope is that this team starts to become very aggressive in terms of trying to pressure the quarterback, and that is really our best route. Also, maybe playing a little more cover two. Like we do cover zero a decent amount, which I don't get how you could have confidence in this team. I don't know how many times you have seen this for cover zero to be on tail. But anyway, defense has been solid. Defense is not losing this team football games. Defensively, we're keeping this offense in a way that is honestly astounding. Eastern Washington is leading the league in scoring, 41 points per game. They put up their offense scored 21 against us, and that was our win. But look, UC Davis put up 27 against us. They're number 2 in the league in scoring at 33. Against good teams, we are not allowing that much. Hell, Idaho State scored below their average in putting up 24 against us. That is game in and game out. Our defensively, our front seven's is what's keeping these games competitive. But good Lord, on the offensive side of the ball, 2018, we averaged 24.4 points per game, tied for second worst in the league. 2019, we made a catastrophic jump to 26.1, but huge asterisk. That's close to 23 because the NAU game you need to understand that was kind of irrelevant relative to the rhythm of the season. We averaged closer to around 22 points per game prior to NAU. Then this season, when we thought we'd take a jump, we're at 25. So truly, almost no change over 3 years on the offensive end, man. And yeah, there are some things we have to acknowledge, Dallas, that might be holding us back a little bit. You know, the receivers down, coronavirus stuff, that's a problem. But look, the other teams in the Big Sky have coronavirus running through the program. Other teams have injuries too. And look, we've on this show talked about how, hey, football's a game of injuries. You just play with the guys you have, and that's what matters. And on the offensive end, Idaho, again, just can't get it done. And again, I don't know why any of us could have thought that Idaho would win 2 games in a row, just based off what we've seen over the last couple of years, the Big Sky. We were pretty dang excited after that Eastern win. This team is not that far from 0-4.
They're not. They're really not. Eastern, honestly, Eastern's going to beat the brakes off of this team next week. It is going to be ugly. Our preview is probably not going to be that long because Eastern is going to shit pump Idaho. Spoiler alert. And then Southern Utah came down to a 7 seconds left touchdown, and this team could legitimately be 0-4. What if this team was 0-4? What would we be talking about? We wouldn't be talking about there's positives here. We'd be talking about this team's 0-4. Are they ever going to be 500 again with Paul Petrino at the helm? Something I wanted to highlight: total offense and total defense. Now, the Big Sky and most conferences, the NCAA, the NFL, everybody sorts things by yards per game. So Idaho's offense actually looks like it's 5th. Defensively, they look like they're the second worst in the conference because of the yardage. But Idaho seems to do this weird bend but not break thing. If you look at the actual defensive statistics, touchdowns, Idaho has allowed 13 touchdowns, second best in the Big Sky. Offensively, they've scored 12, third worst in the Big Sky. If you take Cal Poly out of this, Idaho's offense is better than Northern Arizona's and worse than Weber State's. Weber State, the team that, yes, they're one of the top in the country, but Weber State is known for, we're going to beat you 9-6 because we don't care to score points. We're going to beat you in every other phase of the game. Weber State's mediocre offense is better than Idaho's, and it's not particularly that close either. And that's the thing that drives me the most nuts is what in here says Idaho is a good team. there's no number here that says, yeah, Idaho's really good or things just haven't gone our way. The fact of the matter is this is a mediocre team in the Big Sky 3 years into Petrino's term back in the Big Sky. And it's just, I'm defeated to the point after losing that game that I think Idaho, if things were progressing the way they should have absolutely throttled ISU. I don't see any improvement here, Brian. Do you see anything to make us think the fall is going to be any different than this spring season has been?
I think we have to acknowledge that a lot of fans, some older alums who we messaged with, were not quite as ecstatic after the Eastern win as we were. I mean, if you listen to our recap, we were just off the rails ecstatic about this team. How if you guys listen to our basketball episodes, you might not have known that I possess the ability to be happy about Idaho sports. I think the problem is, look, this isn't a bad team. Every team we've played, it's been close. That includes good teams like Eastern. The downside is you in any sort of game, there's always breaks against you or breaks for you that do contribute to your end result. And I think it's just way too easy with how we beat Eastern early and how we stayed close against UC Davis with the COVID issue to look at those games and think, well, we had things break against us to make us not be 2-0. And that's part of why those were competitive. And it turns out, I think we had breaks in our favor that kept those games competitive, that masked what the team actually is at this point, which is we're absolutely not outside of the class of Southern Utah and Idaho State in the Big Sky. If this game's played in Moscow, hey, maybe we win that game close because the road thing seems to matter. But we had been talking about this team the whole year. So like, hey, playoffs are on the table. Hey, we're up there with UC Davis and Eastern. We're just not. That's it. I think we got lucky with drops in the Eastern win. And other than that, we've been competitive. But the problem to me, Dallas, is it felt like there was some promise in this team early that we'd be something different, which is why instead of walking into games like 2019 against Northern Colorado expecting us to lose, and then we lose, well, because, of course, bad team space plant, we felt like there were some corners turned. And it turns out we're probably a barely better version of last season. Defense is stronger, no different offensively. If this is a full Big Sky playing, we're maybe at the middle of the conference at best, certainly not higher than that midline.
Completely agree. I don't see anything here that tells me Idaho is trending upwards 3 years into the Big Sky. I don't see anything here that says Idaho can consistently punch with the top tier in the Big Sky. Now Eastern, I think, has become a rivalry game. I think that's, for the most part, most seasons going to be pretty close, just because I think that the players on both sides kind of get up for it a little bit, much like this Battle of the Domes game has become. But if you bring back the rest of the Big Sky, I mean, even Montana State without Jeff Choate, I think, destroys this team. Montana just destroys this team no matter what. Doesn't matter who's playing at any position, I think. I am broken, Brian, and I think it might be retroactive here, but I think just every season I just try to hope that things are going to be better, and maybe that's why we saw the Eastern win and we're like, oh, hey, this team's really turning the corner. They really could compete for the playoffs. No, they can't. Get the hell out of here. That's just – the reality has set in for me that this team is just not good enough. And it comes down to really all three phases of the game. Outside of the punting is still maybe the best in the nation. Thank God we can do something correctly. But if your secondary can't stop anybody, you have to score points. But we can't score points. So we need the defense to absolutely lock teams down. And they have done a fairly good job of doing that. But if you're looking to win games 21-14, if that's what it's got to take, there's a lot of pieces missing here. I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, maybe Daryn Nash is going to help that secondary. Maybe there's guys coming in. Zamajay Duncan is one of the highest recruits Idaho's ever had. Maybe he's going to make a CJ Jordan-like impact on the secondary and be a top 2 corner for this team in the fall as a true freshman. Maybe. But again, we're at this point where there's still 2 games left in the season, and we're already, all right, well, we're playing for feel-good points. We know that we're out of the playoffs. We know this team's really just, we're trying to find ways that it's improving, and that's sad to me. That we're just at the point where that's what we're talking about now, to avoid us just tearing apart this program for, honestly, we could probably go for about 4 hours. We're sitting here trying to find things that are improving just to feel somewhat good about the state of this program, which is not what I truly feel.
So here's where it is, Dallas. We know what a Paul Petrino program is at this point. He does recruit talent. He absolutely can get good players here. And when you have talent, there's going to be segments of the game where you perform well. But how many consecutive years of this is us talking about Idaho has talent, but they are unable to put it together? And that's what the Petrino program is. He's not close to like the worst coach in the league, but he certainly isn't close to the best. Around 500 is probably what his DNA seems to be. And the thing I'll point to buttress that, Dallas, is our rushing defense is better than Weber State's right now. We're giving up 3.2 yards per rush, best in league. We've given up 4 rushing touchdowns, which is tied for, it's third place in the league, but that's because there's a 2-way tie for first, and Northern Arizona, they've just had a weird schedule. And I don't really count Northern Arizona. Weber State's given up 3 rushing touchdowns. We've given up 4. That's a comparison. We've given up the fewest rushing yards per game in the league at 106.8. That is that is the statistical evidence for what we've been talking about. Our front 7 is good, guys. They're not just kind of good. They're very good. But then pass defense, just a completely different world where we're worst in the league, shockingly. We give up 9 yards per pass attempt, guys. That I don't know. I didn't know that teams even did that. 9 yards per pass attempt is pretty dang bad. Most of the big skies are around the 7 to 7.8 level. We were making fun of Idaho State a couple weeks ago for giving up 9.9 yards per pass. Well, hey, we're at 9 yards per pass, man. Teams pass whenever they want to against us, or we do the bend, don't break. And what you mean is we absolutely break at points where we give up huge plays. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that circles back. If we're not going to be able to stop teams from passing, even in spite of pretty Herculean efforts from guys like Trey Walker, from guys like Christian Ellis yesterday, from guys like Jonah Kim, we have to put points on the board, which circles back to the offensive quote-unquote guru who just can't get above the middle of the pack offensively and is mostly bottom third. So at that point, Dallas, that to me is what we're describing is the thing that hurts is it seems like there should always be more. This isn't a Zach Kloss Idaho team where it's just garbage and they're just not any good. We have guys that could play on every single Big Sky team on this Idaho team. Cottrell Haywood could start on any team at receiver. Hayden Hatton, good Lord, we thought Cottrell was going to be the guy who took over as number 1. Hayden Hatton is the guy who's taken over the Jeff Cotton spot, which means we still have Cottrell. Our running backs aren't developing the way I think we thought. They're not awful at all, but they're not. I think we thought like Nick Romano and Roshan Johnson would take a developmental step. It's not there. They're still fine, but they're not top 5 in the league or anything like that. But anyway, there's talent there that can make any Big Sky team. But again, Idaho's certainly out of the playoff picture now. If we don't beat Eastern, which I'm not going to expect us to beat Eastern, 500 is our ceiling, Dallas. And that just seems like, again, that's what the program is under Petrino. There's certainly talent, but if you're going to expect the pieces to come together, you're going to be sounding just like us, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. I mean, you mentioned it. Hatton and Haywood could play receiver and either start or get a majority of snaps for every single team in this conference. Honestly, they could probably both play on some G5 schools. Those two are very good receivers. I would say the running backs are. I still have a thought that they are better than they've looked because the offensive line is playing so many young guys. But that comes back to an issue with Paul Petrino. Why the hell do we have 3 true freshmen or redshirt freshmen starting on the offensive line? I understand that there's COVID. I understand there's injuries, but where is the depth? Why is the entirety of the line freshmen? Why in 8 seasons have we had Matt Linehan come out of nowhere to have good performance at the quarterback position, and then outside of that, it has been a travesty. It's been a wasteland of quarterback play for 8 years for a guy who was a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator in the SEC. I'm not trying to be an SEC elitist here, but you'd expect if I went into Doug Nussmeier's office and told him, hey, fix the Idaho program, former SEC offensive coordinator, you'd think he'd do a better job than this. And it blows my mind that we're doing this, and we've been doing this for years. There's talent here. There's a lot of good players here, but for some unknown reason, 500 is the ceiling, and it's that way every single season. And we thought this was going to be different, or at least we tried to tell ourselves this was going to be different, and it hasn't been. They lose to Eastern this weekend. 3-3 is the ceiling, and that's if they beat an NAU team that has looked terrible, but who knows? It's on the road, so Idaho has obviously proven that they are so talented on the road. I look ahead at the next year's schedule, and it's the same thing. I'm like, I don't see how Idaho wins enough games to qualify for the playoffs next year. There's nothing about this team that says, oh yeah, they're going to take a huge step forward, unless CJ Jordan is just named the guy and absolutely explodes like he's a quarterback for Eastern Washington. What is there to even be hopeful for anymore? Because I got nothing.
Two things, and then we'll call it a day, Dallas, which is one, just to give some historical context to your point. As a Big Sky program, Idaho is 8-12 over 3 years. 3-5, 3-5. We're 2-2 right now. So, look, even if we finish 3-3, I mean, that's marginal improvement off the other 2 years. But I mean, this is where we're at since winning the Potato Bowl in conference play, and now this counts one Sun Belt year. We're 11-17 since winning the Potato Bowl. So obviously the Potato Bowl, I don't know how fans haven't figured out that's an aberration. That team won 0 regular season games against teams over 500. Half the regular season wins were by one score against pretty bad teams. The stars aligned for that team. We've had 4 years of the stars not aligning like that. That's just over. That was a great year. Happy it happened. But I mean, if you're expecting that team, that coach, that performance where everything works out, you have to factor in that's like the easiest schedule you could possibly have. And if we don't have that unbelievably easy schedule, I don't believe we have that season. And the following 3 seasons, 4 now, 3 and change, are what I'd use as my evidence for that. But Dallas, the hope part I'm going to tell you about is, again, this is the frustration of the Paul Trino era. There's talent. Again, like we have some great defensive guys. We have some great offensive players that we've already highlighted. We have to get better quarterback play. I also think we have to get a little more creative. One of the things we talked about is for a long time, I mean, good Lord, there are times where we just run it every second down. And that's – look, I am not a genius play caller, guys, but I can tell you if an idiot like me is able to pick up on that pattern, Rob Fennessy is picking up on that pattern. DeMario Warren is picking up on that pattern. So, I mean, the hope is, again, we have talent. This is not the Zach Kloss team, but – I can't explain why people should expect it to come together. And I know with Eastern Washington, a rolling Eastern Washington that's averaging 41 points per game coming up next in Cheney, we're going to need our season's best effort to keep it close, or the wheels fall off this season fast, where we went from thinking, okay, outside playoff shot to, oh my God, what have we done? And Dallas, I think we can close the bar at this point, because I know other guys will want to talk about it too. Actually, before we close the bar, let's shit on someone else for a second. Give me some hot takes about Holt Arena. What did you really take away from that broadcast?
So I'm from Southern Idaho. I've always known that Holt Arena was an absolute flaming, just turd wrapped in another turd, wrapped in throw up, thrown in a dumpster, and then all of that was just a nuclear bomb dropped on it. That place is a shithole. The problem is they built that dome the inverse of what Idaho did, where it curves with the field and it feels like you're playing in some little barn. And then obviously the color scheme makes it look like it was an old like 70s porno or something. They have put no money into anything there. It is a disgusting. I'm sorry, Brian seems to be losing it. I think that dome is an absolute disgusting shithole. Much like Pocatello, shots fired.
No, I was laughing there, guys, because no, I just love somebody's point of reference, because when I see Holt Arena, like, full disclosure, the end result of what you have in porn is not what I think of when I see Holt Arena. What the highlights to me are the seating that makes me the orange, the yellow, the green, the royal blue seating that doesn't match Idaho State University. Makes me think of a carnival. Don't really know why. They also have a retro Bengal painting, which I like retro logos. It's just that Idaho State clearly has not refurbished that. That is accidentally retro. That is not purposely retro whatsoever. And the other, I don't know what the name of their field is. They have this orange script on the field near the name of what the field is. It looks like an imitation Chick-fil-A logo, which, hey, if you get that sponsorship, that's fine. It's just there's nothing that looks cheaper than imitation Chick-fil-A. And that's why we're so pissed about Idaho losing to that team, because we thought we're something else. But anyway, guys, we're closing the bar. Sponsored by Hughes River Expedition. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Venture into the largest protected wilderness in the continental United States, located right here in the great state of Idaho. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway. You can even check out special trips like the one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, take in the history along the river, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. Hughes River Expedition has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976 and ready to take you on a vacation of a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Find out what it's like to grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 800-262-1882 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Please don't jump and sponsor the Bengals and anything in spite of the King Spud stuff. All right, Dallas. I think it's time to play it away. Courtesy of Martin's YouTube page. Always got to give credit if we're going to be stealing from someone. It's time for the best band in all the land to play us out. Sound of Idaho. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.